viewers, here we are again. Promised we'd never have to make one of these things again, but unfortunately what has happened is we're in a 2018 Suzuki Swift 1.4 Sport, and we're back on contingency reviews. I was filming in the area at the Haynes Motor Museum, and Colin, who owned his car, offered it to me some time ago, and I just got a bit too tempted, and well, here we are. Mind you, it's quite a lot of fun, and I think that's one thing that sums up this car. It is a lot of fun. So the Swift Sport has been around since 2017 in this form. There have been other Swift Sports in the past. In fact, I drove one of them quite recently in Essex on sensible second-hand reviews. This particular generation of car, for some reason, is very confusingly known as a Mark III, because the other two Swifts were available before 2005, when the globally named Swift came out, were sold as the Swift in this country, and a lot of you will be familiar with those from the 1980s and 90s and through, I think, until 2003 they made what I would call the Mark II, but for some reason this is called the Mark III. It should be about a Mark V, but anyway, they are still selling this car, but in modified form. This one has a 1.4 litre engine with 138 horsepower. It's actually the same engine that was in the Vitara S of the current generation earlier in its life. What has happened though is that the emissions regulations have meant that Suzuki had to change 1.4 for a mild hybrid unit, which only generates 129 horsepower, and actually 0 to 60 time is affected. In this car it's about 8.5 seconds, and the current model it's about 9 seconds. Very slick 6-speed gearbox, which I am very much enjoying. It just sort of slips in nicely. The handling, oh joy, 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 the handling through this couple of bends is really, really good. The engine's very willing, pulls very smoothly. It's not quite as loud as I was expecting, actually. But just pulling from 50 to 60 there, it feels good. The other engine currently available in the Swift is a much less powerful engine. Much less powerful. It develops 83 horsepower. It actually used to develop more, but again, with these emissions regulations, it's been powered down from 89 horsepower. There used to be two versions of that available. There was an 89 horsepower to standard 1.2, and then the mild hybrid system was 89. The current version is actually a 1.25 litre. They upped the capacity in 2020 when the car was very subtly facelifted. Another engine that used to be available, which is actually in the lane that Colin owns and we tested back last year, was a 1 litre 3-cylinder engine, another boost jet engine, which directs 110 horsepower. Now that was available, I think, with the manual in some trims, but in others it was an auto. You can get an automatic gearbox still with the 1.2 mild hybrid Swift, but I like this manual gearbox. I think it's great. You can get a 5-speed manual in the 1.2 and a 6-speed of this. There is a nice engine note to this car. I don't think you can probably really hear it, but if you really want to rev it out, then it's there. I mean, I personally don't drive like an absolute hooligan most of the time. This is a channel where we drive moderately, but I do like the extra punch this car has. I have driven this engine in a Vitara. It was a mild hybrid version, so 129 horsepower, but if you really want to make progress, and this is the Suzuki for you, it's actually very similar in terms of platform to both the Ignis, which I did on True Jacket reviews in March 2020, and the Baleno, which was sensible second-hand reviews last year. In fact, the dials in this are really similar to other models in the range, like the Vitara. The ride, although the camera is shaking around a fair bit, is actually not too bad. I thought it would be worse. I've driven much firmer cars than this that ought to be hot or warm hatches. This really is a warm hatch, it's not a hot hatch, it's not got enough power for that, but it's fast enough for most people, I would say. Right, I think it's time to go and take a look at this car in more detail. It's quite a nice day to actually be filming this series. It is quite cold and some of the light won't be wonderful, but we can see straight away a big difference from the standard Swift is these twin exhausts on the back. And actually this is metallic paint. It is reflecting very nicely in the sunlight. The rear actually in this car is one of the best features of the design, I think. I don't know if that diffuser does anything, but it looks nice. All the sort of exterior bits on this car, such as the boot lid and the tailgate, are very light. And actually, this car weighs less than a ton, which is amazing for a modern car. Let's lift this up. Yes, unfortunately, we haven't got a spare wheel in here because you didn't get one as standard, and neither do you anymore either. Just a little boot light here. The hook there is for sort of shopping. It's quite a sturdy one actually. That should be good for heavy bags if you didn't want to sort of tip over. The boot's not actually that big. It's smaller, for example, than something like an MG3, and only very slightly larger than something like a Mark II Hyundai i10, about 265 litres. And just as all super minis, there is a big lip here, but that's really what you'd expect in a car of this class, nothing unusual. And someone's very thoughtfully put two handles here and here, so either side of the car. If you're not the tallest person, you can use that. The tailgate lifts really high in this. Even I'm sort of thinking, which one of these do I use? But it's really easy to shut. There's no reason why you'd need electrical assistance to that. Reversing camera is down here. Yeah. The hybrid version of this, the new one, that has parking sensors as well. This one doesn't. On this side you see, it's just how cold it is. The ice is just actually, oh, it's a bit of ice still here. Keyless entry, of course. Incredibly light doors, just nothing to them whatsoever. And the sort of typical modern Suzuki interior, which, you know, keeps the weight down on the cars. And, you know, a lot of the cars do share similar components and a similar platform. For example, this platform in this car is the same as the Ignis and the Baleno. Baleno is just over there, which we filmed last year. So it's very light and everything. Actually, we'll get in the passenger side for once in here. Very, very figure-hugging seats. If you are of ample proportions, then that possibly might not be the best car for you. The standard Swift does have different seats in it. Two different types of vent, including these kind of sort of retro style ones here, with little chrome rings. You don't get any soft touch plastics at all in here. One thing I don't really like is this glove box. It just, we'll just change hands here. The glove box doesn't fit the secret mission documents, and just doesn't feel very nice. I mean, I can forgive the soft touch plastics not being here because this car is actually pretty good value for money when you sort of think about it. And also, a lot of other cars in this class have exactly the same issue with the hard touch plastics. For example, like a Kia Rio, for example. Centre console actually, it feels okay. Looking forward to this 6-speed manual gearbox. The previous generation Swift Sport that I have filmed, the gearbox felt a bit loose. This doesn't feel loose at all. It feels very tight. Thank goodness, standard handbrake, which is better if you are, you know, of a sporty disposition. Single zone climate control in here. That looks nice and easy to operate. We've even put the controls for the maximum demist and the heated window just in here. That centre there will show you the temperature of the climate control. So we'll put that screen on in a second. Look at the door cards here. There is a bit of fabric, but in just so many other cars like this. I mean, my old Seat Toledo was also like this. It was even worse. There wasn't any fabric in that at all. Kia Rio, yeah, exactly the same. Just hard plastic. But Suzuki's do actually have a really good quality and reliability record. It just is the perceived quality of this isn't particularly good, but they do last a long time, and correspondingly they seem to be increasing in price for the second-hand market. Now Colin's fitted a little head-up display there, which you can see the sort of wire running down there for that. That's not standard or anything, but we have got automatic lights, I believe auto wipers as well on this. Steering wheel looks really nice. It's not the same as a lot of the other Suzuki steering wheels at the moment, and it just looks, it feels so much better than the other ones. They're not bad, but this is really nice. And you can see there it says Sport. Right, I think it's time actually to have a look at that instrument panel from the driver's seat. Right, manual seat, so I'm just going to put that back slightly. There we go. It's a good driving position actually, that. It's very good. I'll have to adjust that slightly for myself, but it's pretty good. I mean, actually that'll do. The seat is quite narrow though, if you aren't the slimmest person. Let's just press this button. Ooh, ignition switch position. I don't want to start it. Don't have to go. Ah!
Press it again.
Just...
Don't put your foot on the clutch and press it again.
Dear me. Thank you, Colin. That wasn't good. And we see the familiar system that's been on Suzuki cars for an awfully long time. In fact, the Vitara that I reviewed from 2018 also had this system. The Vitara from 2021 had this system, a slightly different version of it. And the Baleno again has a similar system. They're all virtually the same. On the Swace and the Across, which are not actually made by Suzuki themselves, but are branded Suzuki, they have Toyota systems because they're Toyotas. So I think we are on mute, so we can sort of continue. I'm not going to look at the sat nav at the moment, but we can actually go to the home and see if that does anything. No, that is the home button. Settings, there we go. Let's probably do something. There we go, sound settings and that kind of thing. One thing I would say about this system is that it has a volume slider here, a touch sensitive volume slider. A bit like the kind of things you find on the Mark 8 Golf. And I'm not a fan of that sort of thing, really. Fortunately, if you're the driver, then you do get this button here, which is a lot better. That's a much better thing. You can see the display has come on now for the heating and ventilation, which is good. We've got lots of connections down here. We've got 12-volt socket, USB, that's an aux cable as well. Keyless entry, so the key is just down there. Yeah, 6-speed gearbox feels good. There's no centre console here at all, there's just a cup holder, I think. And there's a couple of cup holders down there too. Yes, just flat bottom, of course, on the steering wheel there. These are the controls for the telephone. And that is the button to turn the lane keeping assist on and off. And some people would be very happy about that. That's the active cruise control. And here we can see we've got the core collision warning button to turn that off. That would be very useful because some people don't like those. and the lane keeping assist. You can also turn that off if you don't want it. Stalks actually feel pretty good. They feel reasonable quality. The dash is very similar to something like a Vitara, although I think that central screen there is actually a much nicer one than the one in the current Vitara. This is a slightly newer design, of course, so you'd expect that. Collins just reminded me that when I reviewed the Baleno last year, I complained about the little stalks that do the sort of things like cycling through the information, things like that. Now you still can use this, as you can see. You go through here like this. It's even got a power and torque. We might put that on actually when I'm driving, just to take a look at it. Gosh, 0 degrees. Oh, it's cold. It is cold. And it's even got boost pressure on here. That's fun, isn't it? Average fuel economy in kilometers per litre. That's interesting. But yeah, you can go through all sorts of interesting things in here. And that's just for resetting the trip, just there. Rev counter. Now the speedo's a bit weird because this car will do about 130 miles an hour, but it goes up to 160. And so most of the time, in this country anyway, you're only going to be able to use under half of the speedo. It stops about here because that's where 70 mile an hour marker is. It looks a bit weird, my fingers pointing in a completely different place that I can see than the camera can see, but I'm pointing at the 70 marker, and so you don't really use a lot of the speedo, which is a bit of a shame really. We could have actually changed that slightly, but that's okay, never mind. Got little sun visors here with the little ticket clips. One thing you don't get in this car is a rear courtesy light, but then it's probably a money saving thing. And there's no separate map lights in here either. It's strange. And there's no auto dipping rear view mirror. This is a standard mirror, which is unusual really these days in a car like this. Right, I suppose I better have a look in the back as well, viewers. Like a lot of manufacturers these days, you know, the Nissan Juke and things is like this, and the Alfa Giulietta was like this. There is the rear door handle. Some people like that, some people don't. Gosh, the seats are sort of tombstone variety. Let me just move this umbrella slightly so I don't sit on it. There we go. There's no rear armrest, but I don't really expect that in a car like this. Yeah, the lighting is going to be a bit of a problem, viewers, in here. That's my hand sort of mitigating it so we don't get too much glare. It's just one of the things at filming this time of year. And you can actually unzip the seat covers as well if they get all dirty. Yeah, there's not. If you're a rear passenger, it's not amazing in here in terms of your sort of view out. It would feel a bit dark, particularly because, as you can see, the rear of where we expect the window to be here, that's all taken up by the handles. So it is a little bit dark in here. The windows are quite heavily tinted. The headroom is actually really good. I'm quite surprised actually. Only looking at an MG3 is similar to this. Knee room's actually all right. It's not the best I've ever come across in this class of car, but it's actually okay. And they've very thoughtfully put bottle holders in here. Now, again, you don't necessarily expect any fabric on the rear door cards in a car like this, and there isn't any. And also, it's all hard touch, but then again, you just come to expect that. There's many, many cars that are like this. Right, let's take a look at this 1.4 engine. One of the things that's good about the modern range of Suzuki engines is they're all chain cam. This is I believe it's called the K14C engine. Generates in this car 138 horsepower, so 1.4 litre with a turbo. There seems to be a bit more room in here than I was expecting. I mean, it's not like as much room in here as there would be on something like a Mark II Fiesta, but not really a surprise these days. You see the gearbox just down there. For some reason there's loads of room around the battery, and the tray looks like it could, you know, actually take a much larger battery. I think possibly the hybrid versions do have a larger battery than this. But everything looks easy to sort of check. There's the coolant reservoir, which is just on the front here. It's actually an overflow tank. It's quite an old-fashioned way of doing a cooling system these days. Windscreen washer fluid. Dipstick's just there, which is really easy. Don't know where the filter is. That'll probably be at the bottom somewhere, possibly. And it's actually in really nice condition here. Colin's obviously kept this nice and clean. Right, I think it's time to go for another drive here, since that's really what one of these Swift Sports is all about. Yes, viewers, like so many other types of review on the channel, in contingency reviews, we still have the camera mounted away, and that's just the way that it goes. It's just a really nice car to drive. The steering is really, really well weighted, actually. The car feels very taut, but not uncomfortable. The biggest problem actually for me is this seat, which doesn't accommodate my girth particularly. Maybe it's time not to go on so many secret missions where we find nice foodstuffs. But certainly through these bends, yes, you can feel the steering so much better than a lot of other cars I drive. The modern, it's extraordinarily good. Straight on. Left. Right, just making sure we get the right directions here. I like Bruton, but we don't want to end up there necessarily right now. Okay, let's go. Oh my gosh. Colin's enjoying the fact that I actually got wheel spin out of a junction. If your name's Mr. Quirk for the Planet Auto channel, then of course that's what happens all the time. And in fact, I blame Mr. Quirk for the fact that I'm actually driving this, because when Colin said he had one, I'd already seen 2 reviews of the Swift Sport on Planet Auto channel. One was a 2018 like this, and the 2021 version has a mild hybrid, and he had the best fun ever in those 2 cars. Biggest problem really with the new version is that the price increase. It was £18,000 when this car was new. It's now £22,000. Now you do get more equipment. This car's quite a safe car. It's got things like lane keeping assist, lane departure warning, active cruise control. I think it's got dual brake support. But it's now got things like rear cross traffic alert and parking sensors and other stuff. Other trims available are the SZL, which used to be called the SZ3, the SZT, and the SZ5. The SZ5, I think, is the only car that comes with 4-wheel drive as an option, which is crazy. This must be the only Super Mini you can buy with 4-wheel drive, and I have seen those around. They're not very common, but they do exist. I do apologise for the ridiculous kind of glare that we've got today. It's just the way it goes in these winter months. There was also an Attitude Special Edition with a 1.2 non-hybrid engine in 2019. And I think a lot of journalists drove that for some reason. I don't particularly know why, but they did. So yeah, it's a pretty good fun little car, this. I'm actually really impressed with it. I knew it was good. Obviously I heard Mr. Quirk, you know, absolutely raving about it, and of course he would. But I also think this is a great car. Prices that, if you want to buy a used one of these, are still actually relatively high. Like, you know, everything's high at the moment on the used car market. But I would imagine the 2018 one like this is not much less than, say, £13,000–14,000.
I paid 11 a year ago.
Probably since then they've maybe gone up a little bit. That was before it went crazy. This one, it's done quite low mileage, about 30,000, isn't it? About 30,000.
27-ish.
Yeah, about 27. And I think for that kind of money, when other alternatives are probably a little bit more than that, I think this is pretty good. I very much enjoyed myself. So viewers, the famous Suzuki Swift Sport is just a car that you should consider. Well, I don't see why not. I mean, if the prices that Colin paid this car last year, I can't remember exactly when it was, are to be believed, and actually they're better value than I thought they were, which is pretty good. I'd much rather have one of these than something like a Corsa VXR or a Fiesta ST, I just think I'd prefer this to one of those. Those aren't really rivals to it, because this is a warm hatch, but certainly like a Fiesta ST line is more equivalent to this. But yeah, I think it's pretty good. I mean, you have to just get used to the philosophy that Suzuki's quest to make the car as light as possible does mean that you don't get some of the, you know, nicer interior plastics, and of course it's built down to a price, but it's a compromise of which I think a lot of people will be willing to live. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed for watching this episode of Contingency Reviews. They're always a little bit of fun. You never know when they're going to happen. Thank you again to Colin for letting me drive his car. I think we've had about 6 of his cars on the channel now. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave a comment below, and the join button, if you wish to become a channel member, is just down there. Thank you.